This is Mount Tabor. Now this is in the Bible and it's a very prominent location. It's like the valley itself just blew a bubble. And here you have this huge dome-shaped mountain. It's important because in the book of Judges, Deborah and Barak defeated the Canaanites on the slopes of this mountain. So it's got a very important value for at least the book of Judges. It's also got a traditional value in that this is the place that has traditionally been tagged as where the transfiguration took place, where Jesus was up on the high mountain with Peter, James, and John, and he became shining white and met Moses and Elijah, and God's voice boomed from the cloud. That was probably at Mount Hermon, way far away over in that direction, and this area here was only venerated as the place of the transfiguration because, well, it was closer to Nazareth, and so when pilgrims came in, it just made it a little bit easier. So it sounds disingenuous, and in fact it was. But what I wanted to talk about was what I'm standing on right now. These rocks right here, all overgrown with these beautiful spring flowers, with Mount Tabor in the background, very picturesque. But what happened here in this place was something horrible. And it was horrible on, you might say, a small scale, but spiritually on a grand scale. Over in the direction in front of me, which you can't see on the camera, there's another hill called the Hill of Moreh. The Hill of Moreh is the place where Gideon actually defeated the Midianites. And on the side of the hill is the village of Nain, known as Nain, where Jesus raised a widow's son. And then on the other side of that, the Jezreel Valley, the city of Jezreel, and then finally Gideon's Spring over there. Now Gideon's Spring is known because of what happened in the book of Judges. But Gideon's Spring is also very, very important. En Dor, Spring of Harod, where Saul and his army encamped at the foot of Mount Gilboa, which Gideon's Spring flows right out from under the mountain. And there they were going to be attacked by the Philistines, who were on Hill of Moreh over in this direction. Saul is terrified. He has no support from David. The Philistines are coming. David, in Saul's eyes, have joined forces with the Philistines. But as we know from the scripture, David had to flee south to Ziklag in order to free his family and his men's family who had been taken by Amalekites and heading off to Egypt, which got David completely out of the picture. And now the Philistines and the Israelites are ready to attack, and Saul is terrified. So, Saul had done something years before, where he had exiled out of Israel anybody who was considered a witch, a necromancer, a medium, any sort of an occultist. That might have been one of the only good things that he did, because Saul was so wicked as a king that God stopped talking to him. Not the Urim and the Thummim, not a prophet, nothing. Nobody was talking to him from heaven, because he had defied God so much, made so many excuses, saying, hey, I did what I thought was right in the eyes of the Lord, when God gave him specific commands. You do what I say, or the consequences will be terrible. And Saul just kept making it up as he went, trying to put words in God's mouth, as it were, and it ate him alive. So now he knows that his defeat is inevitable. So he's going to go to the other side to get his information. Well, he sends some men out to find a medium. Even though it's illegal for them to live here, they're doing it sort of on the black market. And he ends up coming around the Hill of Moreh, where the Philistines are encamped, dressed as a peasant, and he comes to this place, right where I'm standing, this ruined village, which is now a nature area in Israel, back in the farmlands, and it's called En Dor. You've heard of the witch of En Dor. In fact, you probably heard many different types of stories that are out there that are fictional, where a witch or a person who is into the occult might be named Endora. That's where this comes from, this particular site right here. This was just a village. It wasn't an important town, but when Saul came here with 2 servants, they introduced him to a witch. And she was scared, not because immediately she knew it was Saul. She didn't right away. But she was also scared because she thought she was being set up, because what she was doing was illegal and it could cost her her life. So Saul approaches her and says, will you do what I ask? And so she said yes, and he says, I want to see Samuel. Samuel had died years before. Now there's controversy here about who actually showed up that night. Was it Samuel, the ghost of Samuel? Was it a demon? Either way, an apparition who looked like Saul, sounded like Saul, and talked like Saul, showed up. This witch was terrified. She had not expected Samuel to show up, and the moment he did, she knew that that was Saul. Maybe because Samuel greeted Saul. Hi, Saul, nice to see you. You're in big trouble. We don't know. But either way, that's what happened, and she is terrified. That tells you that she's a fake. She did this, and she was surprised that it even worked this time. And so Saul now has a conversation with Samuel, and the short of it is Samuel said, tomorrow, you're going to be like me. You're going to be with me, you and your sons. And Saul is terrified. He hits the ground. He's so scared. The woman is terrified. Samuel disappears, and the woman says, you've got to eat before you go back. She sets a feast very, very quickly before them, and Saul, who is white as a sheet and trembling with the two men, finally leave that morning. It's still dark, and go back to their camp, and the next day, they're attacked by the Philistines, and Saul and his sons are all killed in battle, Saul perhaps surviving the attack and maybe even surviving a suicide attempt when an Amalekite comes by and puts him to death at his request. Well, this is En Dor, and that's where this incident occurred. And it's amazing how people who know God is right, know God is true, know that His Word speaks the truth, when God says something that I don't really like, or maybe I don't want to hear, they go to an alternate source. And what foolishness that is. Because God always tells the truth, and He's put it in writing, and He said, you can depend on me about this. When I say don't do something and there will be consequences, be aware that we can't change that. And when He says, if you do something and it pleases me, there will also be very heavenly consequences that will be very good for you. Because God said that too. Even if life is a rough ride sometimes, this is what He promises. So here is the lesson. En Dor and Saul, the witch, it all happened right here under our feet where we're standing right now on this beautiful spring day, right near Mount Tabor, and on the other side over here, the hill of Moreh. En Dor, kind of a scary place, nothing left of it, but maybe that's best for now.